I think if I was with someone I couldn't communicate with, then that's probably a void in my own self that I need that, and I need that void to be filled, right? So I think that's probably where mistakes kind of happen, and when relationships you start to find cracks in relationships, because I always think that a healthy relationship is when all of my needs are being met by the other half, and all of your needs are being met by me, vice versa, right? So if communication is something that one of us is missing from the other person, that's a void, and if that void is filled by someone else, that's when things get messy.
I also think that communication can be easily undermined, because you may just live with each other, right? You may just be in each other's company all the time, especially if you're working from home. And I think
definitely.
that is what people confuse and think that you shouldn't have to make that much effort, but that's always going to be there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And don't get me wrong, I mean, we've had a lot of dark times in our relationship.
Absolutely.
So I just want to make it clear for the people listening and watching that we definitely haven't had a 100% plain sailing, everything's good relationship, right?
But
we've had rocky roads.
And I think that's why we're able to comment on these things,
Yeah.
because we're talking from our own experiences.
100%.
We're not experts in this matter, but we're people who have lived through this experience, and these are the things that we've learned. Because
100%.
there has been times in our relationship where we've been too busy, and it happens. We can't say that it doesn't, but you kind of put each other to one side, where work gets in the way, stress gets in the way, and then there is that subtle, feel of just drifting, and it so easily happens, but it's so easily fixed if you just acknowledge it and fix it right then. There's times where I may have brought up to you and vice versa that, this whole week you've been so focused on work, you've gone out with your friends, and same with me. We haven't made any time to talk. There's things that have happened in that week that we haven't even had a chance to speak to each other about, and little things like that. Small things can make such a big impact if you just correct it there and then, acknowledge it, take that time out, catch up on each other's lives, and stay
100%.
on that level.
I totally agree. I also think one of the biggest things for a healthy relationship, and things that you could do week by week, I think is essential. In fact, Jordan Peterson talks about this too, is you need to have a date night. One date night per week is essential. But Jordan Peterson says, he's a clinical psychologist in this sort of field, he's an expert, which is why I take a lot from him. But he also says 2 is ideal, but 1 is essential. Now, let me just elaborate on date night. Date night doesn't have to be a very expensive thing. It can also be literally sitting at home with some snacks, watching a movie, and just a bit of a conversation. It could be a card game, it could be a game of Monopoly, whatever you enjoy. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think a date night is crucial, because I think sometimes there's a bit of a misconception with date nights that you need to go out, it needs to be expensive. And obviously, especially in the time that we're at now, not everyone's got money just to spunk on a date night.
Yeah, date night comes under a big spectrum of, basically, to sum it up, time devoted to one another.
With no work.
That is it. Just time devoted. Because even with a movie, yes, people could argue, but you're not actually talking. But there's a very big difference with actually saying, let's shut off for a second. Let's put our phones to one side.
100%.
Let's sit, cuddle on the sofa, have a little chat, have a little giggle, get scared at a movie, talk about it after.
Yeah.
Something as simple as that.
It's so true. And really, that could be done for free.
Absolutely.
Well,
obviously,
I wouldn't say free.
Unless you pay for Netflix, of course.
Yeah. Netflix. Do you know, it's funny, right? Because we literally live off Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus. We literally live off those 3.
Well, when we moved in, we didn't even think about getting.
Yeah, so we've been living together. We've had sort of our own space. We've lived together on our own with no one else for about 2 years now, right? Mm-hmm. Or coming up, yeah. No, actually, it's been 2 years.
2 years this month.
Yeah, 2 years this month. How amazing is that, right? And what we found is that we've never needed Sky or Virgin, and it just goes to showing it how many options there are. So there's so much option on TV, so many options on TV that you don't really need to worry about going out for a date night. There's a lot you could do in-house, even a card game. We love card games. Do you remember we used to play blackjack a lot? Do you remember? Yeah. I used to love
things to look forward to. Even series, we watch a lot of shows that we devote the time to. Hell's Kitchen, we love a Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, Gordon Ramsay Hell's Kitchen. You guys, you got to watch it. We're not getting endorsed or anything like that, but you have to watch it.
But I think it all stems back down to effort, doesn't it?
It does.
It's effort to communicate. It's effort to make time from one another.
100%.
These are big effort. And if you start losing effort, you lose interest and you start drifting. It's
100%.
pretty much the start of the pitfalls.
And when we talk about effort, Tan, I think that one of the biggest things that me and you do, this is us personally now, that I think is a game changer or a deal breaker for most relationships, is we talk every night, which falls in line with communication, but a little bit different. We talk every night, so we communicate, but always just before bed. And I think that's so important. We talk every single night for at least 10 minutes before bed. And I can't express how important that is when you're in a position, right, where you're about to go to bed, you've had a whole day worth of activities. Talking before bed is just so important. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And I think that it's probably the most easiest way to ensure you're having communication that
100%.
day. Because,
100%.
you know, there are those times where you may work out, you may go out for a social, you may do all of these things, you may work late. And, you know, as much as you want to make the effort, life does get in the way. It's impossible to always prevent that. But at least before bed, you're always going to bed together, you know. You always have that space, that time to
there's
devote.
No excuses.
Exactly. It's the easiest way to make that effort.
Should it really be effort? You know, like for example, when I talk to you, I genuinely don't feel like I'm forcing myself to do it as one of my daily communication chores to keep our relationship healthy.
It's true. I
don't think it should be. I think it should be like an exciting thing. But then
effort doesn't necessarily mean a negative thing, because you put effort into anything that
That's
you
true.
love, and it doesn't mean that you're forced to. You know,
I get it.
We put effort into anything we're building. We put effort into saving. We put effort into finding the right car, finding the right thing. But it's not us being negative. It's us, you know, making that choice to devote our time to something that we love doing.
We've spoken a lot about being together and being a unit, right? Now, I now want to discuss personal space, because, again, it's important to understand that a healthy relationship between two people, in order for that to stay healthy, you also need to be solo as well. Because I think sometimes people forget in relationships that you was once single. You know, you once had the life before that other person. You once was independent on your own. You once did things by yourself, and then when you get into a relationship, you go through a honeymoon stage, you're together all the time, and I think you can easily lose yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Agreed.
And I think personal space is so important. Like literally, like I've gone on a few, like, say, type breaks away with the boys. You've just come back from one. You was with your family, all like away from me for a few days. And I think that's quite important. What's your take on that?
Even not even to be with other people, just have your own space.
Yeah.
You can't, it all stems from, you have to love yourself first, right? It 100%. All begins with you. And how can you expect someone else to love you if you don't love yourself?
I totally agree.
First of all, you know, my favorite company, other than you, is me. I enjoy my own time, and I don't feel guilty of that. And I think that if I didn't say that, I'd probably be lying. It's important to enjoy everything that you do, because like you said, you were single once. You were your own person, and you always will be your own person, just with that extra one with you. And if you don't lose yourself in a relationship, you know, enjoy two sides of you. Enjoy your own side with your friends, with your own personal space, with your family.
100%.
And then you enjoy coming back to your partner.
Definitely. So what sort of things do you do in your own sort of personal time that you feel gives you that breathing space? Like, what sort of things would you do, like, to sort of get away from the couple world and have your own personal space?
See, I think that's quite a very open question.
I'm saying more for you. What is it you do?
I mean, personally for me, there's nothing specific. It's more just choosing to do what I want to do at that time.
At the time. So
you know, if I
get a feel
if
for
I
it.
want to just sit and watch a chick flick and cry my eyes out, I want to do that, you know? Or if I want to go to the shop and get a snack, I want to do that. Or go and get my nails done, or go and visit a family member, or go on a girls' trip. Any of those things, you know, I just want to have the freedom to do any of those things at the time.
No, 100%. I totally get that. And I feel the same, to be honest.
Exactly.
Because sometimes I feel like just exercising. Sometimes I feel like going for a walk. Sometimes I feel like just, like I said, watching, I wouldn't say chick flicks.
So when's the times when you feel like you're exercising?
You know, like when I'm having the chocolate bar and I'm sitting there like this with my chocolate bar. It does a lot on the bicep.
That's not the self-time I want.
Can we just make a point here, right? I want to make a statement. So you know when Tanya says cry to a chick flick, it's not just a chick flick. Tanya cries to every movie.
No, I don't.
Is there any movie that you haven't cried to? Like any movie. She cries to, like...
Dodgeball. There you go.
She cried to dodgeball.
I did not cry
You
to
cried.
dodgeball.
You cried to dodgeball. When they almost lost, you cried. You cried. She cries to Winnie the Pooh, Lion King. Oh God, don't get me started about comedies. Like,
I have happy tears. I have sad tears. See, sometimes I want to watch a movie and not be judged.
it's just mad how skillful you are. You can you should be an actress, because the way that you could just start crying like that is amazing.
It's not skillful. It's true emotions. That is what a good movie is. To be able to really empathize with that is what it is.
Yeah. But I suppose you're right. It's like sometimes you're watching a movie, right? And then I look right, and then Tanya's like bawling her eyes out. And I'm just like poker face. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, are we watching the same film here? I don't understand. They are actors.
It's funny because you do seem to hide behind your cushion a lot. Are you sort of, behind?
Idiot. Right, cool. So that, but it's so good. But yeah, so another big part in healthy relationships, right? Now this is going to be a bit of an awkward one if like someone that we know is like kind of watching. But I think it's important to mention it if we're going to be open in this podcast. Sexual intimacy. Mm-hmm. I can't express how important it is to have sexual intimacy and to, well, firstly, sexual intimacy can be can have many variables, let's call it, right? Because sex is just one component of it. Maybe not everyone's interested in sex, so it's to the individual. Do you know what I mean? But I think you need to have some form of sexual intimacy that works for the couple, works for the two people that are in it. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say this is because if you don't have that, you are just friends.
Are we just friends?
Hey, do we have sexual intimacy?
I think that this is an awkward subject, right?
Very awkward, but we did say in a podcast, uncomfortable, awkward and open.
It's an awkward one, right? For a few things. Obviously, the subject itself is an awkward one, but also, intimacy is a key thing.
It is.
But I think different relationships have intimacy at different levels. And I think that there's no, set, okay, if you're not doing it or doing things, this amount of times.
It's not a textbook
It's
way.
not. And I think sometimes there's that awkwardness of, because you're not active for this many times, are you just friends? I think that's an awkward thing because actually it's what works for them.
Yeah.
People have different levels of
It's
activity.
So true. It's so true.
To sit there and say, for example, and unfortunately, I think that there's probably cases in relationships where maybe the man or the woman, who's to say, thinks, okay, they're not active enough. And then they might walk away for that. But is that worth walking away for?
I actually think it could be, Tam. I think it could be because...
then you say... Yes,
or cheating. And I think... We're not going to talk about cheating this very second, but we're going to get into it, so make sure you stay to the end. But I think that somehow falls in line with why people might want to cheat. But again, we won't talk about it too deeply.
But then again, there's that awkward question of what is enough? Because every person's going to want a certain different expectation. So, are you going to walk away from someone because their expectation doesn't fit yours? Or do you need to manage their expectations because it's not all about intimacy? At what point is intimacy the be all end all?
I suppose you made a good point here, Tan, because I suppose when you get older, there may come an age where intimacy is no longer there sexually, but
even at the start,
but you've got like the love and connection intimacy, which plays a big part. Do you know what I mean? I suppose you made a good point. I suppose there's different stages, isn't there? But like for me personally, I think that what separates a friendship from a relationship is that intimacy, that sexual
intimacy.
Intimacy.
I do agree, but I also think, I 100% agree with you. Intimacy is so key in a relationship. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
But I just think that in certain relationships or in certain people, it's important to not lose sight of the other elements of a relationship. Because if, let's say you compare yourself to others, there's that, people talk, right? Boys talk, girls talk. And I guess it's important to not be influenced by other people's experiences, because it's so important that as long as you two match your own expectations and you two feel that connection with that level or multiple time, that quality and quantity,
which is unique to the individual relationship.
Exactly, it's unique because there might be some people who are less intimate but that's all they need. That's all they, like we always say, it's about filling someone's needs.
Exactly.
And if they meet that need, but let's say someone from an external side will think, well, are you friends? people need to stop getting so involved in that subject.
Okay, so then taking that a step further, then let's just say two people in a relationship, and say one person's needs are different to the other person's needs. Should there be a compromise, or should there be a case of you're not meeting my needs, I'm off?
Good question. I think there's definitely, relationships are all about compromise.
Yeah.
No denying it. But then someone's expectations could be maybe too much.
So should there be a compromise?
There should be, but then compromise for each other's needs as well as their own.
Let's even take it a step further. Forget the sexual intimacy. Should there be a compromise in a relationship? So let's just say now you're single and I'm single, and we decide that we want to find someone to date and potentially marry, spend our lives with, whatever it may be. If I go into a relationship, is it my way or the highway? Or is it, this is what I like and what I want in my life, this is what you want and what you like in your life, let's meet in the middle? Or is it literally, I'm not budging, this is my standards and this is what I want? Could there be a compromise in a relationship?
I think that the beginning of a relationship should be when you are the most selfish, in the sense of technically, you know, it should really be my way or the highway. Right, because that's how you base your connection on.
Cutthroat.
Obviously, as you grow older, you know, you change your ways. Yeah. You find different wants, different needs. And at that point, when you've built that connection, then there's compromise to come in. But if you've just met someone, why should you have to change when you hardly even know them?
It is true. It's true. I suppose it's true. But then shouldn't you start a relationship in the way that you want it to continue?
Yes, but like I said, you change, right? When I was 16, did I want to at that point, you know, move out? Probably not at that time, probably not. And maybe at that time I wanted to even live in London, who knows?
Yeah.
But as I grew older, my love, my interests, my plans changed. And that's what's going to happen. But at that point when you meet someone, you know, there should be some understanding of what you want at that time to agree with.
I suppose to find out what someone's conditions are or what someone wants in their life, I suppose you can't work that out overnight either, isn't it? You kind of need to be with someone for about a year or 2 or 3 to really understand what they want in their life.
Yeah, agreed.
I've been with you for 14 years, technically 12, say 14, and I've known you for so long, over a decade, and there are still things I'm learning about you. Although I know a lot. I would probably say I know, if I had to take a cocky guess, I'm going to say 99.999% of Tanya I know about.
You're right. That was a cocky guess. Back to anyway with the intimacy. It is actually super important. And also there is a very different spectrum of it, because intimacy can be as little as just holding hands in the street or just kissing each other or cuddling each
Agreed,
other.
100%.
You know, it's not all about the sexual side of things.
Definitely.
And I think that, like, basically to summarize, it should just be what's unique to you both.
Exactly. And as long as the relationship works in that way, then that's what matters.
Then it's got actually nothing to do with anyone's opinions.
I totally
and don't
agree.
let anyone impact your relationship.
I totally agree. Guys, let us know down below in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know down below in the comments what you guys think about sexual intimacy and anything that we've spoken about so far. We want to hear from you guys, because eventually we want your comments to dictate what our videos and episodes are going to be based on. So let us know down in the comments what you think, and if you have any questions or anything you may want us to cover. Right, so moving on to the next topic. Long distance relationships. Do they work?
You go first.
Okay. I'll give you my take on it, right?
Yeah.
Before we talk about long distance relationships, we need to go to a little fundamental principle before we even talk about it that's going to tie in with long distance relationships. So with long distance relationships, put that aside for the minute. People in life, one of the biggest flaw I'd say in the human world, I would say is in denial. Okay? There are a lot of people that are in denial just in life. It could be that their work, they're in denial. Like they could. A lot of people, for example, hate their jobs, hate their career paths, but they just do it and they accept it and they tell themselves that it's okay. But really, that's not where they want to be in their world. Do you know what I mean? Relationships, people sometimes are in a relationship. They've been together for 6 months. So long distance relationships, but they've been together for 6 months. Are they really going to call it off? It's been 6 months now. It's been a year now. Are they really going to call it off? And it's all right. It's working. You know, why break something that isn't technically broken? And life progresses in that way. And what happens is that person who's 20 ends up spending the next 10, 15 years with that long distance relationship, either partner or with that partner in a long distance relationship, only to find that it wasn't going to work in the first place. And they realized it from day one. Within the first 6 months, they could have ended it off. And they deep down knew, right? So I'd say in denial is a big thing because how can you raise kids in a long distance relationships? Like that's for me a big question. If you want kids, let's just say you don't want kids. How can you communicate every day from long distance relationships? Isn't it difficult? Like, how does it work? That's what I'm trying to get.
See, I have two.
Oh, this is just my opinion, of course.
I have two thoughts to this, because on the straight up side, I think, based on my personal thing, unless it started as a long-term relationship, unless, let's say, you met in one country, you came from somewhere else, and you built your relationship based on a long distance connection, then I think it could work, because it's something that you've built it on. And if you're used to it and you don't know anything else, then you're not comparing it, right? But let's say you did have this relationship where you lived together, you spent every day with each other, and then let's say one person moved, you've just gone from what you're used to, completely out of your comfort zone, and tested your relationship, which you're always going to compare back to what it started as, which could either, make your relationship and it might be for the better, or it could break it. But then that's my opinion on it. But then I also consider there is relationships that, maybe they did work like that, and then the partner went to the army, for example. They're gone for most of the year at times, and maybe they weren't always like that, but it still works. That is what happens. People go back to their families, and I do believe in absence makes the heart grow fonder. When we go on holiday, we miss each other so much, and we do. When we come back, we're close. But then I guess that's such a short break. But when I think of how a long break, what that could do,
that's what I mean.
And funny enough, there was a moment in our life where that almost was a consideration, right?
Yeah, there was.
When you almost were going to work on a cruise.
Yeah, that is very true. And if I took the cruise job, I probably would have been away. I think it was 8 weeks at a time. I think it was.
I think it was longer than that.
Was it 8 to 12 weeks? I think I'd have been away from you.
I'm pretty sure it was months.
I didn't take it in the end because I didn't want to be away from Tanya. What about the Australian sponsorship?
Yeah, even that. But COVID kind of. Thankfully, it was before COVID. Imagine if you'd gone on the cruise. But
it's so true. My God.
These are the things that I think probably we wouldn't be sat here today. Well,
no,
we obviously wouldn't be, but
then I suppose it's a dynamic. But I think what the biggest mistake is if someone is happy with a long distance relationship, and it can work, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Let's just say two people have like a corporate job. Say one person's working, say in the army, or does a lot of traveling for their business, and the other half is also in a proper busy job where they work many hours and they don't see each other as much, and it works. It just works. That's cool. But I do believe that if someone's 20 years old and they've got the next 80 years to live their life, if they deep down want someone by their side every day, they deep down want like someone to see every day, but it's just in a long distance relationship, do not dwell on it. There's a saying, you're better off crying for 6 months than spending the rest of your life in regret. So I think that is a key element here.
But then again, it all comes back to whatever works for you in your relationship. Because if you genuinely are that person where you really are your own person, and you don't want someone always there, and you want to have this whole other life on your own, then it works. If you find that person that wants the exact same, it's fantastic. But I 100% agree. If one person deep down doesn't want a long distance relationship but accepts it because the other does, it won't work.
No, I totally get that, Tan. I totally get that. And I say, if you're going to be in a long distance relationship as well, I think that probably more than ever, commitment, taking a leap of faith into that other person and 100% committing, I think is essential. Don't you think? Mm-hmm. Because it's one thing seeing each other every day and we've got that like trust and relationships are going well for us and all that. But when it comes to sort of, I don't see you now for the next 9 months, I've got to trust that you're still going to have feelings for me. You're not going to sway. You're not going to find someone else. You're not going to cheat on me. Do you know what I mean? Like these are important things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's just a very testing.
Yeah, it's a very testing thing. In fact, if you do a long distance relationship and you're happy with it and it works, you've probably got a stronger relationship than most people.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? So I kind of changed my tune as we've been speaking about it.
I guess we both changed our opinion. I just think that we're in agreement that if it works for the two people, then it can work.
Exactly. And this falls down to back when we said about sexual intimacy.
Yeah.
It's not a black and white answer, is it?
But I think
it's got to work for you or doesn't work for you. It's every single relationship is so unique, especially behind closed doors. Everyone's got a different dynamic. So I always say in relationships, there's always two relationships in one. Every relationship has a public relationship and a private relationship. Do you know what I mean? And it's got to work on both ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It all just, a relationship is two people, half and half. If there's an imbalance in whatever reason, it's not going to work.
100%.
In everything. In every
agreement,
totally there has to be that pretty much close to matching.
I totally agree. Tan. So to conclude, long distance relationships, do they work or not work, or could they work?
They can work, providing that both want that. Agree?
Yeah, I agree. Next thing, this is a very, very interesting question. It was actually one that a guy called Benjamin, who's a friend of ours, he lives in Texas, and he asked a question, and I said I'll bring it up in today's podcast. Why do nice guys always finish last? I think it's a great, great question. So, do you want to talk about this one, or do you want me to start this one off?
I'll leave you to start.
You want me to kick it off?
You can go on.
Okay, cool. So,
seeing as the nice guy always finishes last.
So, yeah. But you're not a guy. That just doesn't work.
Nice girl.
So, why do nice guys always finish last? Firstly, I believe that that's the case. I genuinely believe that nice guys do finish last. And I think the reason why, again, it's very hard to say this factually, but I think we can say this from my personal view. I think that a lot of the time people like this. How can I put it? People like a bad boy or someone who's a bit rough on the edges, right? And I think that if you was to put 100 women in front of you, I'd probably say that all the nice guys are their friends, and all the rough on the edges kind of guys are their boyfriends or husbands. I think that the really, really nice guys, because I think a really, really nice guy, I think is great for a friend, and I think that women don't appreciate them enough to actually think, hold on a minute, you tick every box for your personality. You're such a nice person. Why am I not with you? Why am I with this, say screw boy, or whatever you want to call it? That's going to mess me up, or a bit rough on the edges, a bit of a narcissist, or do you know what I mean?
I think that the reason why people are interested in bad boys is because they want to change them.
So interesting.
Is that if they find someone...
Challenge.
Almost a challenge, but an unconscious challenge. Because if you look at a guy who, let's say, all the girls are after, and he's been known to play around, play the field, mess around, not take things seriously. If you're that one girl that changes them and, brings them down.
Never saw that.
Then I guess in that sense, you found a keeper because you were the one girl that made that difference to the guy that could have had any of them, right?
True.
I think that's probably what people are doing. I think that if someone's going to go for the bad boy, it's unconsciously for that reason. But to say nice guys finish last, I mean, maybe because it's personal to me, that saying really makes me quite sad. Because
it's not fair. It's unfair.
There is so many nice guys, and I think that, like I said, that's probably the reason why people are opting for the bad guy. But maybe that after such bad experiences, maybe then people do become more open to actually there's a person maybe right in front of you as a friend who you didn't actually even consider because they were so nice, or because, like you say, they friend zoned too quickly.
It's true, because even me, when I met you, I was rough on the edges. I still am. Do you know what I mean?
And I was the one that chopped him down.
You definitely ground me. I think I'd be a bit of a lost puppy without you. I won't even lie. It's true. Like, I think without you, I'd probably be in prison. I'd probably say, to put it bluntly.
I married a criminal.
The truth is, like I've never done it. I've never even been arrested. But like, I feel like you've kept me on the straight and narrow road, where I could have easily swayed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can kind of get what you're saying. I can kind of resonate with that. It's just it's a shame because the nice guy would would always look out for you and put your best interests first. You know, and I think that you made a very valid point. I think, and not just women, I think men as well, we like to work for something. Do you know what I mean? So if I was, say, single, I would probably be more intrigued or interested in being with the girl that everyone wants, but I get, versus the girl that maybe everyone's not really into, or, you know, or has, do you know what I mean? Or has a bit of a bad way about it that no one really wants to know about.
But I also think that that's probably, maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but an age thing as well. Because I think maybe younger, you were more into the bad boys, the cool boys in school or college, you know, but as you go older and you meet more people and you become more sure of yourself and what you're looking for, you know, the nice guys don't always finish last. And true. As you're older, they do pick the nice guys, because there's so many relationships now where you look and you think, do you know what? These two people are so perfect for one another. And that's because they saw the nice guy in each other.
I get you. I get what you're saying. So am I right in saying then, to say what you're saying in a summary, nice guys finish last where in the younger world, nice guys finish first as you mature and get more experience in life?
Yeah, I think the race, you know, the nice guys catching up as we grow older.
Okay.
They're like, you know, close to the finishing line, you know, the bad guy, the good guy, back and forth, and one of those is going to win. They have an equal chance of winning nowadays.
I totally get it. Okay, cool. So for Benjamin, your answer is nice guys finish last at the early days, nice guys finish first in the later days.
Sounds good.
I think that's good. And we both agree on that, right?
I think we're both in agreement.
Yeah, because it's crazy, because the topics that we're having are very controversial. Like, we're gonna probably have a lot of people maybe disagree with us, agree with us, and like I said, let us know in the comments what you agree with and disagree with, and just let us know your thoughts and anything you want us to cover.
Everyone has an opinion. We're here sharing ours, and it would be good to get your opinion on it too.
I would love to get your opinion on this as well. Do you know what I mean? So let us know in the comments what your thoughts are, and if there's any questions, we've just answered Benjamin's. If there's any questions that you want us to cover, anything that you're struggling with in your life, send us a direct message, or send us a comment, or you can even email us at pastthepopcornpodcast@hotmail.com, and then we'll respond to you and we'll answer your question in an episode. So that's great.
Like we said, we have open and uncomfortable questions.
Very.
Don't be afraid.
Exactly. So moving on. Again, this is a very, very, very important question that I know a lot of people watching this are going to be like, hold on, I never saw it that way, or I did see it that way. I agree or disagree. This is going to be very, very controversial in that sense. Arguments. Are arguments a deal breaker in a relationship?
No.
Are they good or bad?
Good and bad. We can't say, you know, we're not. I agree. Arguments, to me, arguments are made because you care about one another.
Yeah.
And you care to disagree. Because when you stop disagreeing, you lose the effort, right? It all stems back down to effort.
Definitely.
But arguments are good because they make you care and they force you to disagree and they force you to resolve something. They're bad in the sense of when they get really bitter, because arguments can get really horrible, you know? There's the disagreements, the little natters, the little calling names. Let's be honest, we all do it. Yeah. And then there's the really nasty, you know, really damaging arguments, which are a bad thing. And there is a very fine line between the two. There's no denying that every relationship, even long-lasting ones, cross that barrier all the time.
Yeah.
But it's important to try and always, you know, there has to be a limit. And unfortunately, like I said, we always do cross it. You know, relationships do cross it. But that's my argument with there is a good and a bad to it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, again, I just want to emphasize that me and Tanya, the reason why we can do this podcast is because we are a real couple and we do have the real struggles that couples actually have. And this is why I wanted to do this podcast and why we decided to do it, is because in social media, right, relationships seem perfect, don't they? Social media makes relationships look like sunshines and rainbows, and you never argue and everything's all glamorous and everyone looks perfect all the time. And this is why we're doing this. We want to be real. And I totally agree. Me and Tanya can have very bitter arguments, and we do. I think that arguments overall are very healthy for a relationship. Mm-hmm. Very healthy. And I'll tell you where it gets unhealthy, and that's when you stop arguing. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to dive into that a little bit. So if you have an argument What you're basically saying is that now you've given each other an opportunity to firstly work together as a team to resolve an argument. Because remember, in an argument, it's not me versus you, it's me and you versus the argument or versus the problem. Does that make sense? So it firstly gives us an opportunity to resolve an issue and strengthen a problem that we're having in our relationship as a team. So we're team building. First things first, we are team building, right? So an argument allows us to team build, which is a big, big thing, not just in relationships, but in school. You learn how to be part of a team. It strengthens your social skills. It strengthens many things, many aspects of your life, not just in your relationship. So firstly, we'll learn how to get stronger as a team. That's the first tick. The second thing is it shows that we care. Because if I stopped caring about you, why would I waste my time and even argue? If I've given up on us as a couple, arguing is the last thing I'm going to do. I'm just going to enjoy the good times and any of the arguments and any of the problems. I'm just going to push to one side because I don't care anymore, right? But because I do care is why I want to argue with you. Because I want a part of our relationship to be better. Does that make sense? Because I'm looking at it for the long term. Does that make sense? It's a bit like a business in a sense. You know, if we're in a business and there's something that's not going great, we either want it to work and fix that part of the business so we can improve it and grow in that business, or you'd be looking at, I don't really care because this business is a failure. I just want to get rid of it. Yeah. Right?
I think arguments are good when you resolve them, right? Yeah. When you have your argument, you have your disagreement.
Yeah.
You reflect, you apologize, you know where you've gone wrong and you build on it. But then the problem is sometimes some people agree to disagree and they have an argument and then they don't talk about it. You know, they just move on.
They don't accept that the argument's not being resolved is what you're saying, but they just agree to disagree.
And then it happens again and again and again. And it's an unresolved problem. And I think that is when arguments are bad, because you've made the effort to share those disagreements, to try and correct something or resolve something. But if you've lost the effort to try and resolve it and you don't do that, it becomes deeper and deeper and harder to get out of. Agreed. And I think there's been times in our relationship that that's happened, you know, where we've argued and it's not resolved, or none of us apologize. We're both too stubborn to accept that one of us is right or one of us is wrong. And those are recurring arguments and they become problems. And it's only at that point where we acknowledge, okay, this needs to stop. We need to find a resolution here and a compromise, that argument benefits our relationship as opposed to damaging it.
I totally agree, Tan. I think, I agree totally with what you're saying. And, you know, going off what you're saying is that obviously the biggest problems in arguments is if you're stubborn. I mean, I can be stubborn. I'm not even going to lie.
He's very stubborn.
I can be very stubborn. I can. And sometimes you could say I could be a bit narcissistic. A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. And stubbornness and being narcissistic sometimes isn't great. But I suppose you can as well. I'm not going to... Don't act like you're the angel here. Yeah, you're just as bad as me. But
see, narcissistic.
Yeah. But I think that overall, we learn to work through the relationships most of the time.
Yeah. And
any of the ones that we don't work through properly, we end up picking up the pieces as time progresses and we fix it. Do you know what I mean? Because not every argument is fixed in one conversation, and I genuinely think that. But yeah, I think that relationships can be very, 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 very good. You know, I mean, again, Jordan Peterson, he talks about this as well. He says arguments is what makes a relationship healthy. If I had to say what is the most healthy part of a relationship is arguments. Only in an argument can you get closer, can you work as a team, can you show that you care, and can you improve, all in one argument.
So speaking of arguments, do you think that it's good to get people involved in an argument or not?
Never. I don't think someone should ever get involved in an argument apart from the two people involved. Because you get like the little spin-offs, you get the gossips, and also they're not in your relationship, so they don't really know the deep ins and outs.
But then the argument to that is, let's say you're so stubborn that you can't see the reasoning behind something. Yeah, you're so angry, and in the middle of this argument, in the heat of an argument, you lose sight.
Yeah.
But then maybe someone who has a better influence on you, a parent, a friend, a sibling, if you get them involved for the right reason, as in, you know, so helping that person.
What would be the right reason?
So there's two.
Give an example.
Okay, so there's two things, right? I believe personally I don't confide in everyone. I don't trust everyone to confide and tell my deepest, darkest secrets to, including arguments. I would only go to the person or people that I could trust would not just stick up for me because they should do that, but help me see the other side. You know, I don't expect to tell someone that this has happened and they say, oh no, you're right 100% and George is completely wrong. And, you know, that's not healthy. That's not a healthy support person. But if, let's say, I was extremely stubborn and you said, all right, let's call, you know, my sister, for example, to help us to see, Tanya, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You know, she's got enough of an impact to help me maybe see where I'm going wrong. So that's not bitchy or gossiping. That's seeking advice from an outside person to help them see better. You know?
Then don't you think that if you're asking, say, your sister or like a close family member, that naturally they'll always want to take their sister's side over the sister's partner side?
Not necessarily, you know what I mean? Because I feel like if someone close to me came to me with that issue, I wouldn't be there to say, you're right 100%. Because I disagree with that. And I don't look for that in a person. And the people that may say that, I don't need that. Because, you know, that's going to be me seeing that. I'm going to, in my stubborn ways, I'm going to say I'm right. And I'm correcting what I'm saying and they're wrong. So I don't need someone to give me that little earwig. That's not what I'm asking for. Yeah. But if someone comes to me with, you know, an outside argument, I'm not going to sit there biased, because the whole idea is that if you're that close to that person and you're the right level of support for them, you should be able to see both sides and help that person, if you're that close, to say that they're wrong.
Yeah, I totally get that. No, okay, I suppose we're going to have a difference of opinion on this, which is fine. But I definitely don't want to get, like, I wouldn't want people to intervene with my relationship just because they're not me and they're not you.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I think if I was to get a second opinion, that's where I would say let's seek couples therapy, because that is a totally unbiased, professional view on the situation with no emotional attachment under any regards with anyone in the relationship. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's what I think. But yeah, so all good. So arguments, we've basically concluded that they can be good or they can be bad depending on how you approach it.
Yeah, you can't assume your relationship is perfect because you don't argue. But you can't assume that your relationship is perfect because you do argue. Exactly. I think there's all that balance of, you know, arguments are healthy in a relationship. They are not a deal breaker, to answer your first question.
Yep.
They can be good as long as you resolve them and you don't go too bitter, too angry and too stubborn that you don't resolve them, because they're just going to dig deeper holes and make bigger cracks.
I agree. So the next thing we're going to talk about, why relationships don't last. So what would you say is if I was to ask you now for the number one or say two main things why you think relationships don't last, like what would it be? Give me two big things.
Trust.
If me and you were to get divorced today, what would be the two main factors that you would divorce me for? Trust, big deal, innit?
Trust is probably the biggest reason why people walk away.
Trust. I'd be in 100% agreement there. Yeah. Trust.
Communication.
So trust and communication. Do you know what, Tan? I have to totally agree, because the trust can easily, if the trust is broken, forget it. There's no point being in a relationship if there's no trust. But communication is also key, because communication is in a way what holds the trust together. Do you know what I mean?
The bond, right?
If you stop communicating, then you lose sort of connection with one another. Then the trust will naturally degrade as well, I think.
Yeah, I think trust is a fine line, because you know, to say that you can 100% fully trust someone, it's a big statement. And I personally feel like the only person that you can 100% fully trust is yourself.
I totally get it.
And
it's true.
You know, if I sat here and said, I have zero doubts, I've never questioned, never wondered, never worried, I'd be lying.
Well, we have had rocky roads.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
So when we say trust breaks a relationship, it's not the odd, oh my God, he didn't, you know, it's not that odd question. It's not the odd concern. It's not the odd query. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's the deeper levels of genuine, you are 100% convinced or are in complete distrust of someone, you know?
Yeah. No,
that's what leads to a break, when you genuinely don't have these odd little things. It's deep.
Yeah.
It's very deep, it's very dark, and it's very constant.
I totally get it. And I suppose the trust and communication and the lack of trust and communication leads us on to the next important topic that we've been saving to the end, which is cheating.
Oh, that
because lack of trust and communication, I think, leads to cheating. Because I genuinely believe that the reason why people cheat is for one simple reason. They have conditions that need to be met and needs that they need to have met, right? And if that's not met by the person that they're with, and there is someone else external to their relationship that can fulfill those conditions and fill that void, then that person will cheat.
I personally...
Do you think it's acceptable cheating? Or can it ever be acceptable, Tan?
It's unacceptable.
In every way?
To me, it is unacceptable. I think that if your relationship is breaking, if there is points where they're not fulfilling, you have the respect and the decency to, number one, you try and resolve that issue. That's where it starts at the beginning. If they're not filling a void, you try and fix it.
That comes to the in denial part that we said earlier as well.
If at that point you have genuinely in your heart of hearts made every effort, you've done couples therapy, you've spoken about it, you've sought advice, all of that, then at that point, if they're genuinely not fulfilling your needs, you walk away. You have the trust and respect to walk away from them so they could deserve to find happiness on a trusting level. You should be able to trust your partner to make that decision and walk away if they're not for you. It is so heartbreaking and disrespectful to think that you can just cheat on someone like that. I'm sorry, I will never agree with it. I think that it is, to me, in every aspect, wrong.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I do agree. I agree totally with what you're saying, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
I hate devil's advocate.
All right, I actually agree with you, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate because I know people watching this or listening to it on the audio streams or on the YouTube video. I know that they're gonna want to see two sides to every coin, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate, even though I agree with you, and I've never cheated on Tanya. I'm quite proud to say I've had many temptations, so many temptations, and
all right.
the sometimes the strength to not cheat has been very difficult, and I suppose where the trust and communication comes in, it's those two components that kept me from doing anything stupid, So devil's advocate, let's just say someone's in a relationship with someone else, and they're in a position where the conditions are not being met. Let's just say, I'll give you an example, right? Say me and you are in a relationship, and you're really busy with work, you're a corporate worker, you're working 12, 13 hours a day, I don't have much time to see you, right? I feel lonely and I've got a lot to talk about and you're not there to talk about things with me, right? Am I a bad person at that point if I have someone that naturally, unforced, feels an empty void, but before I just make a rational decision or irrational decision or something hasty, just to test the waters? Will I be a bad person? Think about the words I'm saying. Am I a bad person for wanting to see what I feel could make me happier in my life by testing the waters before, testing the product before purchasing as such? Do you know what I mean? I'm playing devil's advocate because I do agree with you.
I'm glad he's playing devil's advocate. Okay. My argument to that...
We can't both agree on everything.
Is, all right, let's say you've got your partner, like you said, who's working this corporate job, working hard, and you don't see your partner. Number one, let's ask the first question. Are they working hard because they've chosen this career and, this whole other life? Or are they working hard to support your family?
Well, obviously, the money that they'd make would probably be to support the family.
Yeah. So they're choosing, even though they're not devoting their time fully to you, they're devoting their time fully to their family.
All right. So then does then work come before family?
No, because let's say, you want this high-end job, this high salary, to give your family the best life. You're still devoting your time to them because you are supporting your family in another way. And you may feel that they're not devoting time to you, but they're probably devoting more because they're working in another way to make your life better.
That's true.
So number one, you've already lost sight of the fact that partner, I'm getting aware, you've lost sight that partner has already devoted all that time and effort to your family. Yeah. So that's number one. Second of all, this whole try before you buy. Yeah. Let's put it.
You didn't like that, didn't you?
Let's put it in another perspective.
You,
let's say, let's go back. Let's step out of this relationship. Let's say your sibling or someone, a close friend, someone you fully respected, loved, and was there for your whole life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you fancied their partner. Let's go this. Let's do this awkward thing.
Oof.
This is an awkward one.
This is very uncomfortable.
It's a very uncomfortable question. Let's say you fancied their partner. Let's say you have so much respect and utmost loyalty for your friend, sibling, brother, whoever it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you've caught an eye on their partner, and their partner shares an interest in you.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you going to now think, okay, let's say you're single. Let's actually do that. You haven't got a relationship. Okay. Yeah. So now in this situation, you're the single person. Let's say a brother. Your brother has a partner who you fancy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's say this partner now has some interest in you. Now, would you ever consider, because there's a little interest in that wonder, would you go there?
I like where you're going with this. And the answer is no. Because I've got loyalty to my friend.
Exactly. So why does that loyalty not lie with your partner if you were in a relationship?
I agree. I agree with what you're saying. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate.
I think that is...
I want to give people a different look.
It's like you would, for your brother, my sibling, I would never, ever double cross.
Because your partner is your best friend, as we've discussed earlier in this conversation. And your loyalty is 100% of your best friend. So putting the girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or wife aside, your best friend, you should be 100% loyal to your best friend.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So that in itself should create, a level of boundaries that you just won't break, or trust that you won't jeopardize or damage in any way. And I think this is where arguments comes in, doesn't it? Because if I felt that there was a void in me, and I needed to talk to you about it, that's where the 10 minutes before bed comes in. Talk for 10 to 15 minutes before bed, Everyone's at home before bed, or speak on the phone, or just communicate that. That's where communication comes in. So I can see how trust and communication just ties in with everything.
Yeah, you're not a bad person.
I agree.
If something doesn't work out, if someone doesn't fill a void, you are not a bad person, because you deserve to be happy. And whether it's with that person, yourself, or with someone else, you're a person, you're a human, you deserve to find that.
Agreed.
But where you cross the line with making a bad move is disrespecting someone that you should have the utmost respect and loyalty for.
Yeah.
You should never forget that bond. Never. And I think that if you genuinely wasn't happy, and let's say you wasn't happy, and then, like you said, go back to that scenario of there was someone that you questioned, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
That's already that's not something you need to act on to learn from, because that is a case of either, don't get me wrong, even in a happy relationship, you're going to find people you're attracted to. You're a human being, and you'd be a liar if you said otherwise. But if, let's say, there's a fine line between finding someone attractive and seeing more of it. If you see further, there's a big... It stems down to back to your relationship. You need to work out the problem there.
So you can have... You're saying you can have the thought, the temptation, but no, don't action it.
I think...
To a degree, because everyone gets temptations.
If everyone said that they were never tempted by an attractive person, then you are in denial.
Yeah, 100%. Because let's be honest, you don't lose attraction for the opposite sex.
Exactly.
Or whatever you're into, or the same sex, if suddenly you're with someone. It doesn't work like that.
But I think the difference, the very fine line, is acting on that.
100%
or seeing more. It's not,
100% agree.
She's very attractive. It's, she's very attractive. Oh my God, I could see myself with that person. I could see myself happy with that person.
So true.
Why? Don't go down that road. Go back to the path you're on and fix that journey first.
Yeah.
Either leave that journey. Exactly. Either leave that journey or fix that journey. But do not go on two paths in one place. You can't be in two places at once.
No,
so you can't be with two people at once. It's not fair. It's heartbreaking and so damaging to someone.
Yeah. Tanya's emotional, isn't it?
I'm going to cry.
Just to confirm, I have never cheated on Tanya. Right, so let me ask you another question then, Tan. Is cheating ever forgivable? Let's be honest, all right? If someone cheated on someone else, is there any instance where that person could be forgiven?
Okay,
Can the trust be rebuilt after being broken?
This is to me, you know, if someone cheats on you, you don't lose love for them instantly. No. You just don't, right?
No.
And you can't stop loving someone like that.
No, of course not.
But the problem is that, say if it was me, for example, you know, as much as I would want to forgive, forget, and build that trust again, you have shattered something that we've built.
Yeah.
If it's so easily shattered, you know, it's so hard to build again.
It's like that saying they say that a house can take months and years to build and seconds to crash.
Exactly.
You know, and it's so true, because trust is not even something that you can buy. It's just earned over time.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, on level playing field, when you start going out at the beginning, the trust is not there, but there's nothing that's been broken. So you're not rebuilding, you are building the trust from scratch, right? It's when the ingredients get mashed up and everything gets splattered, and then you've got to now trying to get all the missing pieces and try and rebuild it. That's when it gets very, very stressful.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously there is relationships where there has been infidelity, affairs, and, you know, cheating, and they've worked. But, you know, we're not experts, and we're talking from our own opinion. That's what this podcast is all about. And me personally, I struggle to understand how that's possible.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate again.
Oh, the devil himself again.
Because I think when we've been speaking about cheating, it seems like we've been talking a lot about actual sort of affairs.
Right.
So I'm going to take it shorter and a bit more of a different angle, which is, let's just say someone's out. Say you, me, it could be, but don't have to be, it could be a couple to go out, go to the local club, they get drunk with their friends, and something happens where they act like they get caught in a moment. When you're drunk, you know what it's like. They get caught in a moment where something just happens, like a kiss, or is that like now, that moment now, you're saying that now you're going to have to end a 30, 40-year marriage, get divorced and separate the kids and everything, go for all of that because that guy got drunk or that girl got drunk and had in the moment 5-second kiss.
Okay. All right.
What do you reckon?
This comes back to, okay, yes.
So what would you do? Is it
the actual action there, when you think of that in a retrospective against the whole marriage and a life built up, yes, okay. So, all right, a kiss versus a whole marriage, okay. There's a question of, is that worth breaking?
Yeah.
But you know what it is you're forgetting? It's the build up to that. You should not have to get yourself into that situation.
Yeah.
You should not have to get yourself so silly drunk that you don't know what you're doing and you're acting in a way that you do these things that you regret. Yeah?
Yeah.
Back to, again, with your sibling's wife, would you go out and kiss them by accident as you're drunk and expect it to just be okay?
But what I'm trying to get at now, just to make it clear for the people watching or listening, is it forgivable?
No.
So that's what I'm trying to... So in your opinion...
Because it's so easy. I know it's just a kiss. But it's so easy to already break that trust.
Right, so are you saying...
Accidentally or not.
So are you saying that if someone... Let's just say then, if someone... So let me put it another way. Someone who's drunk. You basically take everything that they do and say as 100%, that is 100% factual, what they think and feel, and you don't ever shrug anything off just because you know that they're drunk.
But
you take it all literal.
Who chose to get drunk in the first place? Who chose to drink themselves silly? Who chose to put themselves in a vulnerable situation where they could make mistakes that are extremely damaging to their life?
Yeah, but sometimes putting yourself in vulnerable positions is the way of life, isn't it? You know, any club you go to, you're going to have a drink. What if you get spiked? Okay, let me ask you a question then.
Oh, I don't like where this is going.
Okay. All right. Me and you are married. Let's put you in a situation. Right?
It's getting personal now.
We're married. Right? Because
I might have to walk away from
this. This is why we're having open and uncomfortable conversations. This is no point. Right, we're married. Yeah. And in our marriage, we've been married for 10 years. We've got 4 beautiful kids. We've got a home. We've got businesses together. We've got a dog. Well, we do have a dog. Beautiful dog, Mia. We might get her on the show once. Maybe just to show everyone. And I go to a club. I get spiked by whoever. My drink's been spiked. I wasn't even planning to drink. I just had one drink and it was spiked. My water was spiked. My glass of tap water was spiked. Okay, I'm putting you into the position here now. And I didn't even know what happened because I was spiked. But A girl kissed me. A girl kissed me while I was spiked, and I didn't even remember it because I was spiked. Are you now telling me that because there was someone who you saw it on a video camera of something happening, now because you've touched someone else's lips, we're going to get a divorce, we're going to split everything, we're going to get rid of the business, everything's going to change, the dog custody of the children is all going to get arranged, all of that.
But do you know what it is? Do you know what?
So don't you think that the marriage is more valuable than that one mistake?
Okay.
Because we're only human, Tam.
Yeah, but technically marriage is more valuable than anything. Marriage is more valuable than one night stand or one thing. But
I agree.
But that one little thing, it doesn't mean it's more valuable. It's just that it has such a detrimental damage to the relationship.
So
but
there's no room for mistakes.
My thing for that, my argument to that would, as a distrustful person, because you've done something wrong, question, was you actually spiked or was you using that as a reason or an excuse?
Well, you're going to have to trust me.
But you've already, see, there you go. You've shattered the trust.
Yeah, but how would I shatter the trust?
You've got to see it like this, yeah? Let's say a friend, my friend saw you kissing someone. You come to me and you say, no, I didn't know, I was spiked. That just sounds like an excuse to me. And you know what? I would distrust that.
Okay, so what you're saying, just to conclude on this topic, is humans, you're saying, should be perfect when it comes to being in a relationship.
Not perfect.
Well, if you're saying not perfect, mistakes can happen.
All right, perfect.
Mistakes
imperfections can include on my list.
because you're not giving your partner any room for mistakes. Again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but I think this is quite an interesting conversation for the viewers, right? You're saying basically that your partner is not allowed to ever make any error or anything in this situation, which basically means you're saying to them, when you go out, you should never get drunk.
I disagree.
Because when you're drunk, mistakes can happen.
No.
Am I right?
You need to set yourself up, and you are grown up enough and mature enough as a person to make sure you don't make those mistakes. There are mistakes such as, you forgot your keys and you had to wake someone up. Or silly things in life. But there should be no mistake that should mount to you cheating on your partner intentionally or unintentionally.
So to conclude then, Tan, before we move on to the last question, to conclude, is cheating, yes or no, forgivable?
No.
I think yes. I think yes.
Oh.
I think it could be. I think it could be in certain scenarios. I think in extreme cases it could be.
Right.
There are extreme. Because if we're going by that road, right, so right, let's just say that you fainted on the street.
Oh, okay. Come on.
And then someone had to resuscitate you. Do I get divorced because someone else
obviously that is a life and death situation.
How can I trust that?
Well, I would presume a paramedic if he's blowing everything up.
No, let's just say like I don't know, there was a video of a man kissing you in the street on the floor, and he was like, "Oh, I had to resuscitate her. She passed out."
Oh, come on. That's what kind of situation?
That's what I'm saying. In extreme scenarios, it could be acceptable.
In extreme scenarios, and I'll be as extreme and very. This is a horrible subject to discuss, but things like rape. Yeah. That's an extreme scenario.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That is not cheating.
That's what I'm trying to say.
That is crime
in extreme
and disgust, and no one deserves that. And that doesn't even come close to the word cheating. Doesn't even come close to it. But yes, that is a way of physically being with someone else without choice, and it's disgusting.
Okay.
That doesn't fall into it.
Agreed. That's what I'm saying. Extreme circumstances.
But that's very different to you fell over by accident and fell onto someone's lips. If let's say, for example, right, and I think we've had these conversations before, we've played devil's advocate a lot of this, where if, let's just say, like you said to me before, men, maybe women too, if they go past a certain level and they are so tempted, it's very hard to turn back when you get to that position, right? Yeah. And sometimes you can't get yourself out, and that's only a human being. But who got themselves into that position in the first place?
I totally agree.
Who decided to go to that specific party with a house full of girls or a house full of men? They say, who chose to, put themselves into that position?
There's a saying, prevention is better than the cure. Do you know what I mean?
Prevent at all costs.
100%. No, I totally agree. So, the last thing before we conclude this, going back to the last question now today, the last question is, what would you say counts as cheating?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to throw things at you now, and I want you to say yes or no.
Okay.
Yes if it counts as cheating, no if it doesn't. Okay. You ready? All right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Sex.
Yes.
Kissing.
Yes.
Foreplay.
Yes.
Going out on a date.
Yes.
Going out to dinner.
Yes.
Going for a walk together.
See, this is the hard
Two
part.
people going for a walk
But
together.
it's the context of each of those. Because if, let's say, you work together with a colleague and you both walked home in the same way,
so
that's very different to arranging a secret, oh, let's meet up for a nice little walk. It's basically a date. It's two different things.
Right. So going, me and my colleague decide to go for a nice long stroll together.
Well, that's weird. Yes, that's cheating.
So you say,
Okay.
So we're together for 10 years, married, 4 kids, dog, big house, business together, and we're going to get divorced going for a walk with my colleague.
Okay, well, why are you going for a walk with your colleague?
No, I'm just saying what counts cheating, because we need to conclude.
It's the context. It's the context behind everything.
Right, okay. I'm going for a walk with my colleague, and I think she's a nice girl, and, I could see that, I could see a potential that maybe...
A potential of what?
Maybe something could prosper.
Okay, cheat. Denied.
Okay, cool. All right, right, hugging?
Depends.
Right, depends on what?
Depends on, number one, who? Depends on in what way. Because you hug your work colleagues, you probably hug a friend.
Okay, let's just say I did a really close, tight hug with my colleague, and you saw that, and my colleague was like a solid, pretty, my type kind of girl. And,
okay, obviously,
and I really went in for that cuddle.
Around the waist,
my
and
hand
everything.
around the waist.
Oh,
just above the bum.
Okay.
Yeah, and you saw that, and I was like, just my colleague, Tan. Would you say I've cheated?
I wouldn't say you've cheated, but you've definitely crossed the barrier that you need to. That can be that.
Okay,
can be,
so it's not cheating, but it's a barrier across.
You've crossed the barrier.
So we've done a barrier across, but I'm not cheated.
Yeah, so you've got a barrier across.
Okay.
Doesn't
cool.
mean you could do it. It means that you'd be in a lot of trouble, and
Okay.
if you did it again, you'd probably pass the barrier.
Right. Would you say me flirting with a girl, but just flirting with no intention of doing anything more, just flirt? Would you say I've cheated on you?
It's not cheating, but you've crossed the barrier.
So this is another barrier across.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So guys and girls, listen to this. Very tight hugs, and flirting is barrier crossing, but not cheating. Okay.
But done without regard. If let's say I pulled you up on that and I said, I don't feel comfortable with that, you've crossed this barrier, you need to not do that again, and you do it again multiple times, you've crossed the barrier to cheating. Because if I've told you, if I've asked you, and I've made my thoughts and feelings clear to you, and you've completely disregarded that, you've then cheated.
Yeah, no,
I personally think that cheating is anything that, number one, if they did it to you, you would not like, and you would feel disrespected and distrusted. And number two, if you feel like you need to hide something from that person.
I totally get it. I agree. I agree both what you just said. Both. Like for me, I think sometimes the intention and the action are two different things. So I think, flirting, I agree with you, barrier across. I think a hug, for me, a heavy barrier across. And anything else, I'd say comes under cheating in most instances. So that leads us to the end of this episode.
Left on a tough subject there.
So that's it for today. We really hope that you found value in this episode, and if you did, give us a thumbs up and let us know what resonated with you the most.
If you have any topics that you want us to cover, you can reach us on our socials at Pass the Popcorn Podcast, or you can email us directly at passthepopcornpodcast@hotmail.com.
In the next episode, we're going to be talking about how to own your life this year. We're going to be talking about how to create a plan to become the best version of yourself. And we have a very special guest who is an expert and renowned therapist specializing in specific topics that we're going to cover in the next episode to own your life this year. So take care and see you in the next episode. You do not want to miss it.
Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.